Okay, good evening. I'm broadcasting live, September 20th. There. And there was light. September 20th, 2015. Today, we had the inauguration ceremony. Not much of a ceremony, I guess you wouldn't. Let's just call it an inauguration. So, put some photos up on Google Plus and Facebook. And here's one. So this is a picture of us outside, sort of after the fact. The other monks have already left, but if you want to see the other pictures, they're all on Facebook and Google+. Yeah. No, you're there. So you can go take a look at those. So the idea was to just have an official opening, to be able to say now we are here. We are officially a monastery or a meditation center. Also today, I think the appointment thing is working, but I didn't test it. So potentially tomorrow, let's see here. Yes, tomorrow at 6 p.m. What may happen, if it actually somehow by a string of coincidental successes, is that for both myself and for Tim, if we both go to the Meet page at 6 p.m., a link will pop up saying, click here to join the meeting room. We will both click on that link, and again, if by some coincidence it actually works, we'll have a video chat right there, just from clicking a link. I don't think it's going to work, but theoretically it should work perfectly. It's just probably not going to. Anyway, so Tim, if you're ready tomorrow to begin this process of meeting once a week, stop in here at 6 p.m. and I'll try and remember. This is problem with schedules, is sometimes I forget and I'm doing something else. Many things trying to fit everything in, so hopefully this registers now that I have a schedule at 6 p.m. Maybe I'll put it on my calendar. That usually works. And for those of you who are looking, I'll put a little bit more of a write-up here explaining what this is. See, what may happen is some people might sign up thinking, oh yes, then I get to ask him all sorts of crazy questions, but that's not the point, no. This is specifically for people who want to do a intensive, not an intensive, but a sustained, continuous meditation course, dedicated, where they dedicate 1-2 hours or more per day to practice meditation, and they want to progress. So we'll meet once a week and we'll give them a new exercise and quiz them on their practice and that kind of thing. So that's all this is for. If you come to it and I find out that's not what you've signed up for, then we'll just cancel it. I'll say, no, that's not what this is for. It's only for specifically doing a meditation course. Okay, so there's that.
Bhante, where is it located?
There's a new Meet link. Do you see the Meet link up at the top?
I don't.
You're not on the meditation page?
I do see it now. I had my screen minimized too much. I see it now. Awesome.
We could also make some kind of system whereby it actually checks to see if you're meditating, and if you're not, like if you haven't meditated enough, it just kicks you off, cancels your appointment. Because the problem is, if someone stays on the appointment and then they don't show up, or they show up and say, oh, I didn't really meditate, then that's a slot that someone else could have been in, you know? But, well, you know, you just have to go by, you have to assume that everyone who signed up is serious. Which may or may not be a valid assumption. All right, so there's Tim, he's here. Tomorrow at 6 we will try. We will show up and see what happens. There's always the chat on this page. We can chat it out if it doesn't work. I can say, try it now. Try it now. Okay, we have a quote, or rather it's a rather large quote. But, you know, not a big deal to read. Robin, would you like to start us off?
Sure. The wanderer Uttiya asked the Lord if, with full comprehension, the good Gautama teaches Dhamma to his disciples for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow and despair, for the ending of grief and dejection, for reaching the method, for the attaining of nirvana, then will the whole world attain it, or half of it, or a third? At these words the Lord was silent. Then Ananda thought, Uttiya must not be allowed to think that the Lord cannot answer this all-important question. So Ananda said, I will give you a simile, Uttiya. Imagine a walled town with a strong foundation and towers and a single gate. At the gate, a watcher who is clever and alert, who lets in known people and keeps out strangers. As he patrols the walls, he would not see a hole in the wall big enough for even a cat to slip through, and therefore he would know that whatever creatures, big or small, enter or leave the town, they all do so by the gate. It is the same with the answer to your question, a question that is not important to the Lord. What the Lord says is this: whoever has escaped, is escaping, or will escape from the world, they will do it by abandoning the 5 hindrances, those defilements of the mind that weaken wisdom. They will do it with a mind well established in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and by developing the 7 factors of enlightenment.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just trying to look up Uttiya. Because I've got a Pali here that I don't quite get. So he was a wanderer, not Buddhist. And he was kind of immoral. And he became ill. He became an arahant. Maybe the same, maybe not. The problem with the Pali here is, well, that my Pali comprehension is not good enough, but it says Sattupaladiyang. Sattupaladiya. Upalada. Yeah. He asks, having stood. Yeah, my Pali is not good enough. I don't understand the idiom. So I think it means it's either an enemy. Something like he it's either he stood as an enemy or something to do with beings, that you can't find an end to beings. But I think it's sattu, which means it's an enemy. Sattu paladiyam tattva apuchang. And the point is, he apuchang puchati. I get that part. He asks a question. He asks something that shouldn't be asked. The reason why the Buddha stays silent is he's asking something that's inappropriate. I think maybe from a hostile point of view, acting as a sort of hostile. I don't quite know. This quote that he gives, though, is actually the Buddha's words on, or it's quoting the Buddha. From the introduction, it should be familiar to some from the introduction to the Satipatthana Sutta, where the Buddha says, Eka yuno ayang bhikkhave maggo. This is the one path for the purification of beings, for overcoming sorrow and despair, for the ending of grief and dejection, for reaching the right path, for the attainment of nirvana. Yadidang chattaro satipatthana, that is to say, the four satipatthana. But he's asking something. It is an odd question, right? Because it's obviously not going to have a simple answer. If one person becomes free from becomes liberated, then they're going to affect the world, just that one person. So more people are going to be inclined to practice. And so potentially there'll be more humans born. You could argue that because of the goodness and the purity that's been created, more beings are being born as humans because of the goodness that's arisen in the human world. So animals will be born as humans. That's the idea. In which case the population changes, right? Obviously, though, half the world becoming enlightened in a moment is ridiculous. So it has to happen gradually, and as it happens gradually, things change. At the same time, Buddhism fades away, so there's new beings who are born as humans, don't have a chance, or have less of a chance, have less of an ability to practice the Buddhist teaching. So, it's a bit of a silly question, really. But I'm not sure whether he's being hostile or not. According to the commentary, it tries to explain it, but it's using Pali idiom that I don't understand. How is this useful to us? I mean, more useful to us is what Ananda says. Ananda gives a great simile that boils down to there's only one way, basically. Anyone who has attained Nibbana does so through basically the four Satipatthana. Or if you want to say by the suppression of the abandoning of the five hindrances, but I would prefer to talk about the four Satipatthana and the 7 factors of enlightenment, because the five hindrances can be suppressed, or they are not always present. It's not exactly a direct translation, even though it's awesome when you do suppress them. It's not exactly the path. The path is the four Satipatthana and the 7 Bojjhangas. Those are a little clearer. They're actually doing something, right? They are positive states. Sati, mindfulness, and the other 6 Bojjhangas, or factors of enlightenment. So when you have sati, when you're mindful, you start to have what is called Dhammavicaya. Dhammavichaya is number 2, right? Jeez. Yeah. Sati. Dhammavichaya, when you have mindfulness, then you're able to separate good and bad states. You're able to understand Dhamma, was kusala Dhamma, akusala Dhamma, good things, bad things. And then you cultivate effort, and there's tranquility, concentration. It's actually not quite linear, because sometimes you have to cultivate sometimes you have to cultivate Dhammavichaya, Virya, and Piti, and sometimes you have to cultivate Passaddhi, Samadhi, and Upekkha. So when you are drowsy or tired or kind of kind of lazy, you should cultivate Dhammavichaya. This means try to clearly see and clearly observe the experiences, good and bad. See which ones are good and which ones are bad. Virya, try to cultivate virya through walking meditation or whatever. And piti, try to be content and to get into a groove, to really get into a rhythm, a routine, kind of. And on the other hand, when you're distracted, when you have too much energy, then you should cultivate passaddhi, which is tranquility, concentration, and equanimity, because these tranquilize the mind. But the best way, really, the true way to balance these, again, it's like balancing the faculties, but the real way to balance them is through sati, because the Buddha said for sati it's different. It's always to be cultivated. Mindfulness is always useful. And so it's the one that does the balancing. You don't have to think too much about it. When you have sati, then you have Dhammavichaya, you have virya, you have piti, and you also have passaddhi, samadhi, and upekkha. Your mind becomes balanced through the practice of sati. It's kind of like the key that starts the car. Anyway, that's our quote. Do you have any questions today? Quite a few green people. That's nice to see. Still some of you red oranges. Just fine. For some people, they're just getting off work or whatever. Or they meditated earlier. And there's some people who never meditated.
There are people asking if this is the page to ask questions, but they haven't submitted questions. So yes, you're in the right place if you're looking for the place to ask questions.
You're in the right place to meditate. Asking
That
questions
too.
is optional.
That too.
Because I notice the person who's asking that question hasn't ever meditated with us.
I have difficulty dealing with people. When someone talks to me or even looks at me, I feel so anxious. I do sitting meditation at home, but it's hard to be mindful when I have to leave home and have an interaction with people. Any advice? Thanks.
Have you read my booklet on how to meditate? It's a good place to start. You say you do sitting meditation. Well, try to do walking as well. Walking first and then sitting. And don't worry about people, worry about your own mind. Because once you get your mind sorted out, you'll have an easier time dealing with people. Train yourself first. It's like a boxer has to train before they go out and box. Hey, there's Joshua. He was here today. Anthony's here. He was here today. Anthony's orange.
Did you all meditate together at the inauguration?
Yeah, we did an hour of meditation this afternoon.
Very nice.
Someone put up a photo album. What was that about? Oh yeah, someone was taking pictures of our live stream. That's funny. How did they manage that, I wonder? That's great. Hey, I know that guy. He does the Ask a Monk videos on YouTube. That's funny.
More often than not, when I'm meditating, my thoughts are not in words, in language. So I don't say rising, falling, for example. Instead, I'm with the breath as it rises and falls. Is this okay?
It's okay. I mean, I'm not going to hate you for it, but it's not the way we meditate. We would consider it not really meditation from our point of view. So, can you become enlightened that way? Sure, you can become enlightened in many different ways. It's not really as, it's not structured enough for our tradition. It's not honest. No, the word isn't honest. See, it doesn't force you to stay objective like the word does. The mantra, it's like a mantra. A mantra is a tool used to focus the mind. So you're not using the tool that we're giving. So you're not practicing according to our technique. It's like the difference between thinking about death and actually saying death, death, death. Our tradition, which is the tradition from 1500, at least 1500, if not older, 1500 years old or older. Going back to the Buddha who said, Gachanto va gachamiti bhajanati. When walking, one knows I walk. So kind of at least hinting at the idea of using a mantra, which would have been very big in his time anyway. Thank you, Madi, for making that album. It's kind of awesome.
Can you please speak on attachment to people and how to stop?
Have you read my booklet on how to meditate? It's a good place to start.
What does one do when thought does not come in language?
Well, then you're out of luck, I guess. Like animals can't use a mantra. But I had a person who was deaf once, I think, and they think in sign language, apparently. So I had told, that's fine, then you use the sign. You have the thought, which is the sign, which is a means of, I don't know, it's a little bit, maybe a little abstract, but
So they were giving the mantra in sign language?
I think so. They were
Interesting.
creating the mantra in sign language.
Often when I meditate, I feel very depressed, but when I'm done meditating, it goes away. Why is this?
Well, sounds like a real bummer, actually. Could be many reasons. I mean, one reason that comes immediately to mind is how difficult meditation is. So in meditation, you have to deal with your problems. In real life, right, our fake life, actually, we can avoid reality. We can, when a problem comes up, we can go watch television or whatever, you know? In meditation, you can't even move. You can't stand up when you're sitting, sit down when you're walking. You've committed to half an hour or an hour of a specific activity, so it causes some stress in the beginning. When you have attachments, when you have reactions, when you're not able to be objective. But it teaches you about your reactions. I mean, depression is one of those. Depression is a reaction. It's teaching us how unpleasant it is. Why it's another reason why it's nice when you finished, because you've worked some of that out, and your mind is more objective. So for the rest of the day, you're in a clear state, so you actually feel better after having meditated. Feel clearer in the mind if you do it correctly.
Neo says he's only ever watched your videos. Now,
You know, he
you,
hasn't meditated with us yet. That's
yeah.
where we should start.
Do you recommend the book over the videos?
Yes. Videos can be useful with the book, I guess, because the videos show you how to do it. But the book is better as far as information goes.
What mudra do you use, Bhante? Do you use any at all?
What's a mudra? I'm not familiar with that word so much. And actually, I think I know what a mudra is. Isn't that a hand position or something?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, don't use a mudra. Mantra. We say a mantra. Mantra. So that's what we use. It's a word or a phrase that focuses the mind. Mudra sounds kind of hokey. A couple of questions here that you're
Did I miss
skipping the
them?
ones. You're skipping the ones that aren't meditative questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't intend to skip anything. I apologize. It's just kind of a long day.
Hmm.
Um,
What were you doing today?
we had a family reunion today. A lot of people over. Bhante, are you coming to Florida in the winter?
Yes, probably, maybe Tampa area. Dunedin is where I'll be. Christmas to visit my mother and hopefully teach a little bit of meditation.
Skip other ones?
There was one more, something
Hmm.
about the thing here that I'm doing. I did meditate, but it turned orange. I turned orange shortly after. Why?
Oh,
I don't know. It's a mystery.
it does seem, well, I think it may be tied in with the length of time also. I've noticed, if I meditate for a short time, it seems to not stay green for as long. Or is that not right?
I don't think so.
Like,
That sounds too advanced. I
if
don't think
you
that much thought went into it.
really, so if you meditated for only 5 minutes, it would still stay green
Yeah,
for,
I'm not sure about that, but I don't think it's
yeah.
a sliding scale. I think there might be a
Okay.
cutoff, but it would either probably just be a cutoff or yeah, 5 minutes will do it.
Okay.
I think it lasts for 3 hours, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. So someone should log in for 2 minutes and see if it lasts for 3 hours.
I can probably tell you in a second. right, so not meds. No one currently meditating. No, that's not it. Can't find it.
Okay. Well, we can just try it and see. Bhante, when you say if you're agitated, you should cultivate tranquility, do you mean practice samatha meditation?
No, I mean practice mindfulness, because mindfulness will balance them out. Here we are. Med list, logged users. You have to be on the list. All it looks for is whether you're on the list.
Okay.
So if your name is on this list, then you'll be in green. Once the time passes to the point where you're not, because it only finds the past 3 hours of meditators, I think. So if your last time you meditated is earlier than 3 hours ago, you won't be on this list, and therefore you're in orange.
Okay. I'll experiment with it a little bit tomorrow, but I really thought maybe it's changed. I don't know. But it seemed like if you hadn't meditated for very long that you fell off the list earlier. But
Could be some bug.
maybe. Bhante, where did you get the alarm I heard the other day? It was birds chirping and maybe a frog. I
That's
like that one.
I think that came from Free Sounds. freesounds.org or freesound.org. It's a great place where people just give each other sounds, post sounds. I mean, it's sharing. It's one of those awesome parts of the internet where people actually share stuff instead of trying to sell it.
When you
But I think I cut a piece out, or fudged something together. I think I just cut a piece out of something, and don't think
when
it
you
was a frog.
when you first added that to the settings to use that as a tone, I had it on my PC, and my family actually thought it was birds. They're
Yeah,
like,
I've
"Well,
had that.
what's going on? It seems like there's birds here all of a sudden." All
It went off in Stony Creek once, and the monk, his eyes go really wide.
yeah.
What's that?
Can mindfulness be strengthened by reading?
Not the mindfulness we're looking for, no.
Yeah, so if Neil was asking, where did you get the alarm as far as how are you getting it to play? Yeah, it's in the settings. If you look in the settings, there's a bunch of different alarm tones.
That one?
I like that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's better than any bell because you can hear it. It's loud enough to hear, but it's natural enough to not bother anyone, I guess.
Yeah. The gong. I can't use the gong. The gong is It's startling. It's harsh.
Burmese bells are pretty harsh as well. That's actually the bell I have here. I recorded that and the Tibetan, not the Tibetan bell, but the singing bowl, I think. Yeah, that's singing bowl. That's one I have here. You want it. You have to say wanting, wanting. Oh, here's a couple of questions.
What's a good starting point for reading Buddhist suttas or books?
Well, if you go to, how do I say this without without getting in trouble? There's this app on Google Play that lets you read Theravada Buddhist texts, but you need an archive. So it's got a link to an example, just an example of an archive that would be useful. And you don't need the app, but if you go to the Google Play app page, Theravada Buddhist texts, you'll see the link to the zip file. And really that zip file is, well, it's an example of all you would need. Now, it may not be completely legal, copyright speaking, but just take it as an example of what you would want to read, because that has the suttas in it. So, but you could also buy the books. They're worth buying. All the wisdom publications, translations of the Buddhist teaching.
Is the app actually called Theravada Buddhist Texts?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
But from those texts, I would recommend reading probably the Majjhima Nikaya, and probably also the Digha Nikaya, the middle-length discourses and the long discourses. As far as non-canonical books, I'd recommend reading anything by Mahasi Sayadaw. If you go to static.sirimangalo.org, there's a folder called Mahasi, and you can find some stuff in there.
I also do not use the mantra once I enter a state where language doesn't exist. I use the mantra to get to that place though, but once I'm there, it hinders my state of awareness, taking me out of the present moment by forcing me to think. Does this mean I'm doing it wrong?
Yes. Sorry. It means you're... Well, you see, you've got some claims there that I would contest. First of all, the idea that you're using the mantra to get to a state, and you're doing it for the wrong reason. The mantra is to avoid giving rise to judgment. So it's to allow you to see the experience as it is. It's not to get to some state where language doesn't exist. It's not where we're headed with this. Mantras can do that, but not this mantra. If you're using it properly, as I describe in the booklet, or as Mahasi Sayadaw talks about, if you read his books, they're awesome. And he's hands down the best. Then you shouldn't ever get to such a state. If you did, then yes, you would acknowledge those things. And it doesn't hinder your state of awareness, it just hinders your state of calm and contentment and peace and bliss, whatever the experience of that trance-like state is. But what it's doing, by doing that, it's showing you the impermanence of that state, that state is not stable. It's only stable insofar as for as long as you keep it, as long as you force it or cultivate it. Not force, but cultivate. Once you stop cultivating it, it fades away. And once you start thinking again, it dissipates. So it's impermanent suffering and non-self. That's what we're trying to see through meditation. That's what you should be seeing. It's not about attaining some specific state.
How can one be mindful of the Dhammas, such as the aggregates of clinging or the Four Noble Truths, using your method? Wouldn't this be meditating on a concept rather than an experience?
No, it's using a name to focus on the reality. I mean, what does a mantra do if not focus you on the object? A mantra is for the purpose of focusing you on an object. When you say red, 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 it focuses your mind on the red color, but just the redness. Now, that's how meditation has been done for at least 1500 years, but certainly longer than that. Like we have a text that's 1500 years old that explains it like this: red, 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 and so on. Mantra doesn't take you away from the object, it takes you towards the object. Now, if the object is a concept, like red is a concept, then yes, it focuses you on a concept. But if the object is a reality, like the movement of the stomach, then it focuses you on the reality. I think it just sounds weird to people in modern times because it doesn't sound like what they think of as meditation. They didn't realize it was going to be like work. But really, I mean, mantras are it's a very well-known established meditation technique. So it's not right that we have such confusion about this technique or such suspicion of it. We have to think about it a little bit and realize that really it's quite standard and it really does work. You don't have to say wouldn't it or wouldn't it. Just try it. If it does, then okay, stop. Go do something else. But watch the video. There's a video I did called Experience of Reality. Watch that video. And remember that video when the going gets tough. Because the real problem that people have with, real reason people come up with criticism for this meditation technique is because it's not comfortable. It takes you out of your comfort zone. It forces you to confront unpleasant states, forces you to confront your reactions. And if instead of confronting them, you follow them, then you react and say, this meditation's terrible. You find reasons, excuses as to why it's not worth doing.
Sometimes in frustrated states, I have doubts about the whole activity of meditating or anything else for that matter. So I just sit there and go doubt, doubt, doubt. Is this correct?
That's
And
awesome.
any other pointers for handling this?
Well, frustrated came to mind first. If you're frustrated, I wouldn't say doubting, doubting. Sounds like you're doubting, then you'd say doubting, doubting. So, okay, if you're doubting, then go for it, but don't miss the frustration. Because that's the real reason why meditation's unpleasant, is because we get frustrated. It's our own fault. There's nothing wrong with the meditation. There's nothing wrong with your mind wandering and this and that. It's when you get frustrated. Okay, there is something wrong, but it's far less wrong to wander than it is to be frustrated about the wandering. The frustration is a far bigger problem.
Bhante, do you know of the Pure Land Amitabha? What are your thoughts?
I don't answer such questions. I don't think about such things. I think this Sam guy, did he meditate with us? Oh, he did. Okay, good for you. But your questions are not very meditative. I think you need to do more meditating. 20 minutes in the past week, that's not much. Till you get a shaking finger. Shaking, shaking. No, I'm just teasing, kind of. It's not a big deal. But this is mostly for meditation questions. I mean, really, look, we have this example here. The Buddha, he didn't answer a question that was put to him. But obviously, I mean, I have answered other questions and so on, and I do answer them, but not so much anymore. You have to consider, is your question puchang puchati or apuchang puchati? Did he ask a question that was proper to be asked, or a question that is not so important?
I sometimes find myself having imaginary internal arguments with people. What is a good way to note this?
Mahasi Sayadaw says arguing. I'm not so convinced, but if he says it, go for it. It's fine. Maybe arguing does work better than thinking, but usually I would just say thinking. And you'd have to note the emotions as well. If you're frustrated at the person, or you're angry, or if you're kind of excited about the argument, then you have to say excited.
How do you calculate the minutes in meditation from the app?
Well, if you click on a person's username, I think this is what you're talking about, you get their profile, and then it's got a meditation log, so we can all see how many minutes. And if you hover over the green bars, Fernando has done 120 minutes at 0 and 20 minutes at 1. So we've done 140 minutes total this week.
So is that a week from a particular day, or the past 7 days?
Past 7 days, I think.
Ah, very nice.
I think that's what the meditation log is. I think it's only the past week. Doesn't say that, does it? 71 hours of meditation has been performed. If you hover over the green bars here at this page, you can see that just in the hour 0 alone, the hour before this, for this broadcast, 71 hours we've done.
That's awesome.
Pretty awesome, guys.
So we need more people to meditate at the hour of 5, which I think is, let's see, kind of the middle of the night for us here in the Eastern time zone. But maybe early morning in Europe by then. Do you note while you speak? Speaking. This seems to be the most difficult thing for me to note because I lose my train of thought.
It gets easier. I mean, you don't have to lose your train of thought, but it's not the thing. It's not the speaking. When you're speaking, it's actually fairly easy to be mindful. It's when you when you do the thinking that you can't be mindful. You change. Your speaking pattern changes, and yeah, you do. Not necessarily lose your train of thought, but your train of thought becomes more in the present. So if you're trying to think of it becomes unnecessary. Your mind just doesn't care anymore. But if I want to sit here and talk to you, like I can say, a feeling, the lips moving. I mean, feeling seems more meaningful to me than speaking, because you're feeling the lips moving. You could probably also say moving. You could say speaking. I like feeling better. And then you've got to be mindful of the emotions and mindful of your thoughts. But you can do it. But what you'll see is your speech becomes simpler. You're no longer thinking outside of the present moment. I mean, it's harder to keep, as you say, you lose your train of thought. It's harder to keep that abstract thought going. I don't think it's impossible. I think you can do it. You just have to be a little more patient with yourself and It has to be something that is really worth speaking, because your reactivity ceases, right? And when you're not no longer reacting, sometimes the reason for speaking was reactivity. So you were interested in something or talking about something, but that something, to keep that subject going, required kilesa, basically required defilements of mind. So when those are gone and your mind is pure, you have difficulty talking just for the sake of talking, or engaging in even idle chatter. Your mind just loses the interest and so forgets about it.
What did the 0 through 23 columns indicate?
Hours UTC. So right now it's 1:0100 UTC.
So
It's actually almost 0200, right? But it's in the hour of 0100.
So it would be 1 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time? Would that be
151.
1:51 Greenwich Mean Time?
We don't say Greenwich Mean Time anymore, do we?
I don't know.
Maybe we do.
Probably not, because now that I think of it, I haven't heard that in a very long time. So did they just say UTC? Has that completely?
Universal time.
Yeah, universal time. But it's one in a particular place, which is in Greenwich, England, right?
Right.
Yeah. I try to focus the mind on my breathing during moments of intense toothache, but to no avail. Any tips or pain experiences you'd like to share?
What do you mean by no avail? You mean the pain didn't go away? See, this is the whole point. No, the pain is not going to go away. Pain is not going, it's not your slave. Pain isn't under your control. Sounds like it was a resounding success, in that it made you realize that, I mean, if I'm assuming correctly, that the pain isn't your slave. It's not under your control. Sounds like it was a great success. Probably wasn't a success in terms of getting rid of your dislike of the pain. So you probably should have been saying disliking, wanting it to go away. So wanting. That's where you may have made a mistake.
Do you have to judge whether liking or disliking after identifying a thought or emotion, or is exploring the reaction not necessary?
If you identify a thought, then just say thought. But if you realize that you're liking or disliking, then say liking or disliking. However it appears to you. It's awesome that we have someone from Cambodia. Still haven't told anybody. I meant to tell the monks here that we have someone from Cambodia.
That is cool. Can you explain a little more about how idle chatter will disappear? What was the kalesa that you were talking about?
Well, it won't arise because your mind, idle chatter requires some delusion, some clouded state of mind to arise. Idle chatter isn't the default. We only cultivate idle chatter when we have some kind of fuzziness in the mind that makes us think that somehow it's beneficial to speak like that. When your mind is clear, you have no reason to speak for just for the sake of speaking. You don't have any compulsion to do so. Kilesa is that which compels us to perform unwholesome deeds. So, but by unwholesome, it sounds like a very big bad thing, but it can mean very subtle things, like just as I was saying, idle chatter is unwholesome. The meaning is it's a cause for suffering. It's based on delusion.
It also seems like it's like related to anxiety. You're not comfortable with silence.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to fill in the silence with saying anything.
Yeah. I mean, but just a lot, yeah. And people don't realize that so much. But people just like to talk.
Yeah.
We, a hard time staying silent.
Is there a preferred grammar when noting? Present participle is present participle greater than noun, greater than adjective?
Sound like my linguistics professor. Present participle, nouns, adjectives. I have to remember what these all are, right? Present participle is usually preferred in English. Walking, walking. Don't know how you'd argue. Adjective is probably usually improper, because adjectives tend to be descriptive in the sense of judgments. Your own extrapolation, like big, loud, good, bad. That's all improper. Can be a noun. Participles are nominative, or no, nominal, I think. Substantive, like, so seeing can refer to the verb, but it also refers to a state of seeing, or a thing. Seeing is a thing. So a concept, and it's not exactly a concept, it's an experience, but it's a thing. So, but the ing is common in English. Seeing, hearing, feeling, liking, disliking. Usilanandas had a funny, interesting explanation. He said, if you say angry, angry, that's citta nupassana, mindfulness of mind. And if you say anger, anger, that's dhammanupassana, mindfulness of the dhammas. Which is why we try in our tradition, like my teacher has separated them out. So citta nupassana is just thinking. He doesn't go into detail because they're also discussed in Dhamma. So if you want to, for practical purposes, we only use them. We only put the nivarana, the emotions and so on, in Dhammanupassana, even though the Buddha talks about them in Cittanupassana.
So angry, angry is better than anger, anger in that
It's not
sense?
better. It's just if you say angry, it's Cittanupassana. If you say anger, it's Dhammanupassana. The word's not that important. It's just a word that focuses on the thing. Focuses your mind and keeps your mind focused bare, in a very bare and neutral way on the thing, without allowing for judgment. Because you're fixed. Sati is mindfulness. The function is to grasp the object, not in terms of greed, but in terms of how you grasp a concept in English. You fully grasp it, and don't waver, because the problem, grasping or clinging, in the sense of clinging, comes from not grasping the object, comes from sliding off the object, wavering from the real object into our reactions to it. So we like it, that takes us away from reality. That's how we get away. And then we're off in, how can I get it? How can I keep it going? And, oh, isn't it such a wonderful thing? Oh, I'm so happy that I got this, etc.
How can I get it back? Hello, Bante. Next week I will be getting my first taste of monastic life at Gampo Abbey in Nova Scotia. They offer a week-long temporary ordination. I've been meditating for many years, but have little to no experience with Buddhism. Do you have any thoughts?
Do you have any though?
I'm going to assume that it means, do you have any thoughts?
What happens when you get the limit? Does it just cut it off like that?
It looks like it just cuts it off, yes, which is better than what it used to do. It used to not put, it used to not put your post in at all. So this is good. It just chops off the end.
I don't know
We
why
can
it
work with that.
shouldn't do that.
I'll just make up the rest of the question, the ending of the question.
Does it just trunk it? Oh, maybe I know. Maybe I know why that's happening. You see, there's so many little variables that you have to consider. Let me see here.
But that is definitely better than when before you made this change, you'd write in a post and you'd put it in and nothing would happen.
Yeah,
So
I
this
know.
is
I know why
definitely
it's doing that.
better.
Maximum limit is 255, so we'll just up that to 65,600. What is it? 65,000. Let's just do 64,000. I can't remember the exact. For some reason, there's a standard length there. Now it can be 64,000. It never will because we've got a limit, right? But in the database, it was only allowing 255 characters. That's why it's cutting it off.
Do you have any thoughts about the Shambhala tradition and Pema Chodron? Any tips for someone attending their first meditation retreat and getting their first real taste of Buddhism?
Letters are funny, no? Pema Chodron. Pema Chodron. It's Tibetan.
Wow.
It's funny how you can say the same word in so many different ways.
My problem is I always read these, I never hear them, so mispronounce everything.
Chodron. I'm pretty sure it's
Chodron.
Chodron. So what is 65536? What does that mean exactly? Thank you, Anthony. Don't know why. Oh, it changed to medium text. What the heck is that? This is such a mystery to me. I really don't know what I'm doing here. Yes, medium text it is. Whatever the heck that means. Now there's no limit. It's a medium text. I'm really not a programmer. Right, back to what I'm really into. Buddhism, the Shambhala tradition, and Pema Chodron. Pema, Pema means dear, right? Beloved. Which is totally not what you're asking, right? But that's about all I think about that word. Yeah, I don't have anything to say. Okay, I do, but I probably shouldn't. I do because a long time ago someone gave me a mini disc with one of Pema Chodron's talks on it. And he said, he was my teacher at the time actually, and he said, oh, it's amazing how close what she teaches is to what we teach. And I listened to it, and I thought it was kind of close in a way. It was fairly close for being an entire different school of Buddhism. So since then, I've kind of had a good feeling about her. That's about it. But I don't really have and she's fairly famous, and she's Canadian, which is always a plus.
So Curtis has no experience with Buddhism, but he's going for this temporary ordination. Would you recommend that he read up on anything or try to learn anything about Buddhism before he goes?
It's they're Tibetan Buddhists, I mean, I don't know what her path is. I couldn't even tell you what to do for
No.
if you're going to Thailand to ordain, because each monastery is so vastly different, great, high, very different. If you were going to my teacher's monastery, oh, I'd have a lot to talk to you about. If you were coming here, I could offer some advice, but, it's kind of like saying, hey, Bante, I know you're Christian, so I'm going to this Christian church. Got any advice for me? It's a bit hard to answer. Just because if I were a Christian, doesn't mean I can talk to you about some other Christian.
True.
I just don't want to get into answering such, to expressing such opinions when my opinion might be completely based on, then I have to study up, get an idea about those traditions. So that's just, as a policy, I've stopped answering questions about other traditions, except the Goenka tradition. They're our rivals. They're the enemy. No, I don't mean it like that. I don't mean that's not how that joke should go. They're the competition is what I was looking for. And it's still a joke, but they're certainly not the enemy. That was not what I meant to say. But we have this contention. They think we do it wrong. We think they do it wrong. Not exactly. They think they're better. We think we're better, basically. So I do talk about Goenka tradition from time to time, but even still, I don't want to go into detail because what you say about someone, they're like a river. You talk about them. How can you say you're talking about that person? What do I think of this person? Well, I think when I met them, if I met them, or when I heard about them, if I heard about them, when I listened to their talk, what do I think about me 10 years ago? I have some choice words, let me tell you. The talks that I gave 10 years ago. Hey, the talk I gave last week. Like a river. Sometimes it's sometimes good, sometimes not so good. I think we should think mostly about now. That's where the greatest benefit comes from. Okay, so we have an appointment page and they're mostly filled. So here I'm hoping that all of you who have signed up for slots are actually dedicated and are not just going to take a slot away from someone else.
Now, how about the ones that are listed for Sunday? Is that actually for today, or has that? No, because today's already
passed.
Already passed, so that's for next Sunday.
Like this person, Aaron, who's signed up for Saturday, hasn't ever meditated with us. Oh, but he does daily meditation practice, so that's good. I don't think I can really set some kind of qualifier there, but I think the idea would be that you do. See, the only way I can really gauge if you're practicing every day, and it's still not fail-safe, obviously, is if you're posting your times here on our site. So every time you do the meditation, you post it. So I would like to see that of everyone who's doing this. We'll see. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I know many of you are meditating with us.
Yeah, from time to time there are people who put into the chat, they newer people, they don't understand that you actually are expected to log in your time. They come and they're online here, but they're not actually submitting their minutes of meditation. So that makes a difference.
Would do, but we should have them log it.
Yeah.
If they log it with us, then I can look and I can say, okay, he or she has been doing meditation every day. I think some people are just trying to do just sitting, which isn't going to work for this. I'll have to put more information, but if you want to do this course thing, you're going to have to be doing both walking and sitting. Preferably equal parts. Anyway, we'll sort that all out. I think it'll be okay. But that's all for tonight. We've gone over time, so thank you all for tuning in. And we'll be back tomorrow, barring any catastrophe.
Thank you,
Robin.
Bhante. Thank you, Bhante.
Good night.
Good night.